Listen, so the one question I get the most from people, just people in general, is because I grew up Amish, where do they come up with all these rules? Where do they come from? They don't really make any sense. I agree with that. They don't make any sense to me either. But where did the Amish come from? Like, so, or why do they operate the way they do? It's a very interesting question. But anytime I try to understand something, I have to like look through the whole history of it to see where they're coming from, what happened, what made them do what they do, what is the motivation behind their rules, etc., etc. So if you look at the Amish here, I'm gonna explain in this short video today a little bit of the Amish history here, and then in the end here, I'm gonna go over these numbers. I am a numbers guy. I love numbers, so there's some very interesting numbers here. So I'll get right into it here. It was in 1522. 1522 is where the first person got Anabaptist in Surrey. 1522. And what is Anabaptism? So what is Anabaptism? That is, first of all, it's not anti-Baptist. What it is they just didn't believe in baptizing babies. So, the Roman Catholic Church always baptized their babies. They didn't want to do that. They thought they don't know, etc., etc. So that is when that broke off. In 1522 is when the first person got baptized as an adult as an Anabaptist. So that was in 1522, and then Jacob Hutter, we've all heard of the Hutterites. He was a very successful leader over there, if you want to call it that. I guess he was probably the most, and where Anabaptist happened is, I have my map here. It was right here. It was right here in Surrey, and then in Moravia is where Jacob Hutter was in Moravia, and then eventually went to Romania. But the reason I say he was probably one of the most successful Anabaptists is his little group that he had is, and they moved to Moravia because of the strong Catholic rules. So they couldn't see eye to eye, etc., etc. So they kind of moved to Romania, but they used to go back to Moravia, and his people were the most persistent. I mean, they'd go back there, and they were very, very successful in turning people into Anabaptists. So when that was the Anabaptist movement. Now that was in 1522, and then Menno Simons. This is almost this is probably almost 100 years later. I think I didn't get that number for sure, but it's close to 100 years later. Menno Simons, who was a Catholic leader, became an Anabaptist, and then broke away from Anabaptist, and that's where the Mennonites get their name from. And they always got the name from the opposition, like the Hutterites. They gave him a name, and it just stuck with him. So Menno Simons, and that still works today. By the way, the Amish church, when they have problems, all of a sudden it splits open, or somebody goes a different direction, thinks the church maybe has too much stuff, etc., etc. So that was all that was happening here. Is Menno Simons when started the Mennonite movement. So when the Amish movement, here's when the Amish movement finally started. Jacob Allman, this was back in Switzerland. Now this was back in Switzerland again. Because at this time, already a bunch of these Mennonites, because of persecution, etc., had moved to the United States of Canada back at that time. And then they had issues with I believe it was the Russian military in Canada too there, and they ended up moving down to a lot of Latin American countries. Now, Jacob Allman then started the Amish, and they were over there for some time, but they were also facing persecution because of their religion in Switzerland. So they came into America. By the way, the movement was started in 1693. So they were over there for almost, let's see, that'd be 12. They were over there for like 17 years. So after 17 years, they came to America. And the way they were able to come to America is because of William Penn. So he was the son of a king somewhere over there in the Middle East. Very wealthy guy, obviously, had inherited a lot of money. Pennsylvania. That's where William Penn is where the name Pennsylvania comes from. You know, Lancaster County, that's where the first Amish ever located in the United States was in Pennsylvania. So they came to Pennsylvania because he granted them religious freedom. He had a piece of inherited land. William Penn, and he granted them religious freedom to settle on his land. So that's what they did. They came over in 1712. In 1712 is when the first ones came over. Now, watch this. So in the 1700s, 300 Amish immigrated to America. 3,000 Mennonites immigrated to America. A 100 years later, in the 1800s, 3,000 Amish immigrated to the U.S. and only 300 Mennonites immigrated to the U.S. So, and here's Amish population. Mennonite population is 2.1 million. Amish population 341,900 as of 2019. And here's the thing. People always think that Amish won't be around forever because of changing rules, etc., etc. No, they'll always be around because they double about every 20 years. It's still a small number. 341,900 people, that's a small number compared to all the people in the world, obviously, or even in America. But the reason I say they'll never go away is they double their population every 20 years. It's doubled every 20 years. And 87 to 88% of the Amish join the church. So that means only about 10 to 12% actually leave their religion, their church. So yeah, it's gonna get bigger, not smaller. Now they'll adapt in ways, or I believe they have to if they want to make a living. You have to adapt in some kind of a way, a little bit, but they'll be, and as this gets bigger, it'll just get more and more churches. See, the Amish today are a lot of different churches. It's not just one church. I don't know, that'd be an interesting number actually to find out how many churches there, how many different kinds of churches and rules that there actually are, meaning ordning. And all the ordning is that's their rules. And all it really is a set of unwritten rules, basically, is what it is. Maybe they have them written down somewhere, but it's not like in the Bible or somewhere, but it's so if somebody breaks off the Amish church, they have to write their own ordinance. And so the Amish are in quite a few states in the U.S. Mennonites are in every state of the Union, but the Amish are not, but they are in quite a few states, and we're going to go over numbers here now. It's pretty interesting with what's happening here with the Amish. So these numbers are increases from 2010 to 2019. So 2010 to 2019, how much the Amish population increased in these states. There's only 3 states that it decreased. Only 3 states that it decreased. All these are increased. So first off is Virginia. So 332% 332%. Virginia increased their population. Maine, interestingly enough, is 278%. Mississippi, 267%. North Carolina, 267%. Nebraska, 143%. West Virginia, 107%. Kentucky, 72.2%. New York, 71.4%. Tennessee, 51.5%. Minnesota, where I'm from, 48.6%. 48.6%. Missouri, 47.6%. Michigan, 44.6%. Excuse me. Wisconsin, 43.3%. Iowa, 38.8%. Pennsylvania. So this is the interesting thing here. Pennsylvania was the first one they ever came to, but they move around so much. Lancaster County is where the very first Amish came to. Pennsylvania, 33.4%. And then there's Florida. How do Amish live in Florida? The community I grew up in, we couldn't have lived in Florida. I mean, what kind of work would you have done in Florida to make a living? There's no farmland, no nothing there, but Florida is increasing, 33.3%, but they're probably more moderate. Amish. Indiana is only at 31.4%. Ohio, 30%. Delaware, 25.5%. Kansas, 24.6%. South Dakota, 20%. Arkansas, 13%. Illinois, 12.7%. Montana, 12.6%. And then Vermont and Idaho, I could not find a number. It is a slight increase, but could not find a number. Colorado decreased by 24.7%. So something about Colorado that the Amish apparently don't like. Texas, also something about Texas they don't like. 13.3%. And Oklahoma, 0.7%. So that is the numbers. That's a brief lesson of where the Amish came from. Obviously, you could go into a lot more details. But again, I get so many questions about why do they have these rules? It's all, if you look at it kind of all makes sense in a way that where it started and everything. It doesn't really make sense. The rules don't really make sense to me, but at least you can understand it and why they do what they do, etc., etc. So with that, I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.